Welcome to my channel, that is Economics Club UG2 PG. In my earlier video, I have explained you about the concept. In details, I have explained the concept of PPC, means production possibility curve. So this is the video of continuation of the previous one. So I will request everyone to go to my channel and first you watch that video. Okay, after that this concept you should follow. So in my earlier classes I have told you that our PPC curve, it will be always, means if we measure good X along the horizontal axis and good Y along the vertical axis, then our PPC curve, it will be always like this, means it will be a smooth curve. So there the definition of PPC, that also I have explained in details, that how the definition actually came. So definition we have got that PPC is the combination, PPC is the locus, PPC is the locus of combination of two goods that a producer can produce optimally using the resources, means by maximum utilization of the resources, and obviously there should be the state of technology, it should be remain constant. Okay, now students, this PPC curve, means production possibility curve or production possibility frontier, it has two properties, two very important properties. So what are the properties? Properties of PPC, or you can say it is PPF or transformation curve. So number one property is production possibility curve is downward sloping. Production possibility curve, it is downward sloping. So you can see that this curve, it is downward sloping. Okay, it is downward sloping. Some students, they may say that no sir, it is upward rising like this, but it is not upward rising, because it is the concept of math. We are measuring horizontal axis along what? Along this direction, and vertical axis along this direction. So we have to read any curve from left to right always. So always from left to right. So if you see it left to right, so curve is downward sloping. Okay, now second property is production possibility curve is concave to the origin. It is concave to the origin. Students, you know, it is simply mathematics. This shape is called concave. Okay, if I draw the curve like this, any curve, if I draw like this will be convex shape. We can say it is downward sloping but convex. If I draw any curve like this, you know, downward sloping straight line. So generally PPC, it become concave to the origin. Okay, but its shape, it could be convex, it could be straight line, but on some certain conditions, means there are certain ground. So if those ground fulfill, then only the curve, it could be convex or straight line. So that also I will discuss. But before that, we have to prove the first property. So now I am going to prove the first property, that is PPC is downward sloping. So how we can prove it? Students, you know, downward sloping, to prove downward sloping, if I can prove that one commodity, when its production is increasing and the production of another commodity is decreasing, then automatically I can say that the curve is downward sloping. Okay, let me explain. Suppose in mathematics, you know, I am taking two variables. Suppose one is x and another is y. Now, if one variable, if its value increases and the value of another variable decreases, means if both the variable move in opposite direction, then we can say that there is negative relation. We can say that there is negative relation. Okay, so when x increases, y decreases, we can find negative relation. If x decreases but y increases, then also I can find a negative relation. But if both the variable move in the same direction, then there must be a positive relation. There must be a positive relation. So if both values of both variable increases, or if I say that value of both variable decreases, there must be a positive relation. So here, to prove PPC is downward sloping, I will follow, or I will apply this concept. I will apply this concept, means negative relation concept. So if I can prove that there is one negative relation, so we can prove that yes, the curve is downward sloping. So for that, what we are doing, let's see. Suppose if a producer move along the PPC from point M to point N. Suppose a producer, he is moving from commodity bundle A, M, to commodity bundle N. Then what is happening? See, at this commodity bundle, initially the producer is used to produce this much amount of good X and this much amount of good Y. Now if he moved to N, he is producing this much amount of good X and this much amount of good Y. So you can see that producer, he is producing, suppose Rn amount more of good X, is it not? So Rn amount more of good X means this much amount more of good X producer is producing now. And as he is producing more of good X, he obviously he has to sacrifice this much amount, means Mr amount of good Y. He has to sacrifice, means he has to produce less. Why? Because resource is constant. So already we have got that our resource, it is constant. So whenever your resource is constant, both the commodity at greater amount, the producer can't produce. So both the commodity in a greater amount, producer can't produce. So whenever he is producing Rn amount more of good X, he has to sacrifice Mr amount of good Y. Now you see this amount. So from here also I can say, as he is producing more of good X and less of good Y, so obviously there is downward sloping, because there is a negative relation. There is negative relation. So this one I can write like this, plus delta x. Why plus delta x I have written? See, plus means producer is producing more, that's why plus. Delta means it is change, means initially producer is producing this much amount of good x, now he is producing this much amount of good x, so this much good x he is producing extra. Extra means this minus this, if you do, then this one will remain. So that's why this is change I have taken, okay, for good x. Similarly here means this distance means mr, that one I can write it is minus delta y. Why minus delta y? Minus means producer is sacrificing that amount of good x, y. Producer is sacrificing this much amount of good y. Delta means here also change, means initially producer he is producing this much amount of good y, now he is producing this much amount of good y, so this much he has sacrificed. So I can say that if producer move from M to N along the PPC, he is producing Rn amount. Rn amount means Rn amount also we can denote it by plus delta x. Rn amount of good x and sacrificing mr amount, means we can say minus delta y of good y. Why he is sacrificing? Because resources are constant. As resources are constant, as resources are constant. Okay, so we get that production of one good is increasing and production of another good is decreasing. So obviously this means, so this indicate negative relation between production of good x and good y, between production of good x and good y. So I can say that PPC is downward sloping. So PPC is downward sloping. So this one is the proof. Okay. Actually, here something extra also, if you want, you can do. Means here you can show the slope of the PPC. Means you can write the slope of PPC equals to. Acha, just you see, if any curve is downward sloping, then obviously its slope will be negative. Obviously its slope will be negative. So slope, how you can find? You see now, if you see MRN, suppose if I take it like a triangle, suppose this point is M, it is R and it is N, then slope means if you take this angle, means if you say it is theta, then tan theta will always indicate slope of any triangle. So tan theta means what? Perpendicular means MR by base, means Rn. Okay na? So here also the same thing I can write, means if you take the slope of the PPC, then I am taking the perpendicular, means Mr by base, means Rn. Achha, here what is actually Mr? What is Mr? Now Mr, it is the amount of good Y that producer has sacrificed, means producer is producing less amount, means sacrificing. So that is Mr, means amount of good he is sacrificing. So we can write here it is minus delta Y. So obviously this one will be negative. Okay, divided by Rn is what? Rn, it is the amount of good X that producer is producing more. He is producing more. So it is denoted by plus delta X, means this one will be obviously positive. So the numerator it is negative, the denominator it is positive. Obviously the total sign it will be negative, means slope of PPC it is negative. So PPC will be downward sloping simply. Okay, so this is the proof of first property of PPC. Okay, second property in next video I will consider or I will tell. Okay.